Welcome to Dark Facade, a channel dedicated to looking past the veneer of humanity and finding its true face. I will be your tour guide down this winding path of tales, ranging from the supernatural, science fiction, and twisted love. All the stories you're about to hear are assorted bits of literature that will range from the bizarre to the unexpected. So sit back, lower the lights, and allow yourself to be taken away from everyday reality to its shadowy reflection. If you enjoy our unusual content, please be sure to hit the like and subscribe button to receive more. Thank you. Welcome to Dark. Hello and welcome back to Dark Facade. You're listening to Bastian and Lucia, Part 10. The sound of the city gates slamming shut, followed by the immediate jeering of a crowd, promptly brought Bastian to his window. Far below he saw Lucia, bound and gagged between two large poles on a wagon that was being led through town. Bastian and a number of his men were having to fight off the general population as they made their way to the witches' council for her trial. He became enraged when he saw various spells being flung at her from the crowd. Her poor body was battered, and her lovely face was bruised. If she'd not been able to heal as quickly as sanguines do, she would have been dead already. He wanted to curse each and every blasted witch and wizard down below, including Bastian. How could he ride ahead like a pompous ass while something so rare and lovely was being tormented just behind him? For anyone with any sense could see just how wrong their thinking towards her kind was. He knew it within minutes of meeting her. He could do nothing to defend her, however. His powers had been drained of him and would not be restored until her death. The sound of his door opening pulled him away from the misery below. Romula, along with several other familiars, came in. Bastian's eyes narrowed in disdain when he saw her. "What do you want?" he spat. "Your father wants to see you," she answered with downcast eyes. "Well, I don't want to see him," he told her before heading back over to the window. "He's willing to let you watch the trial," she said. "Trial?" he echoed mockingly. "A trial infers that she will be given a fair chance. She will not get one. We both know that." "I know what you think you feel for her is real, but your father is right. It's just an illusion," Romula said, attempting to mend bridges between Gaius and his son. "I suffer from an illusion, do I?" "Yes," she nodded. "I suppose you could say it is an illusion, the same sort that he suffers from where you're concerned," Bastian sneered bitterly. Romula regarded him in surprise. "They say the same thing to witches and wizards that fall in love with their familiars. Tell me, Romula, are your feelings just an illusion?" "It's of no consequence now. He will be gone soon," she replied diplomatically. Bastian shook his head. Even now, at the end, she would keep his secrets and remain in the shadows where their love had taken place. "Come, my prince. Come to your father's side, if not for him, then to gaze upon the one you love before she is taken away." The heaviness in Romula's eyes told him all he needed to know. She'd been a prisoner her whole life, a prisoner of oppressive laws, and a prisoner of love. What she thought or believed did not matter. It never had. The only happiness she knew took place in secret, and the one who had stolen those moments with her put duty first. He was going to make sure it would be the same for his son. Happiness was for people who did not wear a crown or bear the responsibility of it. He walked quietly with the small group of familiars back to his father's chambers. They would watch the trial take place with the aid of dark crystals. They were similar to crystal balls, with the exception that they could hone in on images of the present. At her master's command, Romula conjured up the Inquisition chamber for the witches' council. Bastian's eyes immediately filled with anxiety when he saw Lucia standing before the 12 judges bound in chains. There was a small assembly of the nobility sitting behind her. Lord Chilton was acting as steward of the throne, and was seated where the king or Bastian would normally have sat. Due to Gaius's fading health and Bastian's bewitchment, neither could be present for the trial. The prince took some comfort when he saw the brutalization Lucia had endured earlier at the hands of the crowd had decreased in appearance. She was still somewhat banged up, but despite it all, her spirit had not diminished. Lucia stood unafraid in the court of her enemies. She had accepted her fate long ago. She had made peace with it. As the charges of conspiracy and rebel-rousing were read aloud, she remained calm within the growing storm. "You've heard the charges levied against you," Vesta, the head inquisitor, asked. "Yes," Lucia answered. "Do you understand them?" she further inquired. "I do," Lucia nodded. "How do you plead?" "That depends," the sanguine replied. The council paused at her audacity. "Depends on what?" Vesta demanded. "On what is true," the Blood Witch stated calmly. "What is true?" Vesta echoed. "Yes," Lucia nodded. "All right, let's review the facts. You stand accused of knowingly breaking the bonds between familiars and those they serve. Do you deny this?" "I deny none of the charges except for one," Lucia replied. The chamber came alive with discourse, causing Vesta to demand silence. Once she had order maintained, she refocused on the sanguine before her. "Which of the charges do you deny?" the head inquisitor asked. "Bewitchment," Lucia answered. "You may deny it all you like, but you are as guilty of this as the rest of the allegations against you." "I cast no spell over your prince," she said. "It is the nature of your kind to bewitch and beguile. Your blood enslaves the undead. It makes sheep of wolves, and brings wizards as formidable as Bastian to his knees. Your very presence seduces and ensnares any supernatural that crosses your path. You are a danger that must be eliminated," Vesta declared. "Danger?" Lucia echoed. "I suppose my kind would be a danger to those who practice slavery and don't wish for that to change." All those on the council glared angrily at her response. "You are on trial here, Blood Witch," Vesta reminded her. "Yes, I am on trial, but what is my crime? All I have done is give freedom to those who long for it, who deserve it, who have a right to it," she said with unwavering conviction. "Oh, and is it also the right of a familiar to murder?" another from the council asked. Lucia simply stared at him in confusion. "Madam Inquisitor, I'd like to present evidence we acquired quite recently against the accused," he said with a vicious gleam in his eyes. "State your name, brother, and then speak," Vesta commanded. The judge stood up and removed his hood. Bastian gasped when he saw the wizard's face. Marcus Flynn hated sanguine kind with a passion. He had boasted about his time in the service of Ambrose's army, the vampire prince who sought to enslave Merrick and her children and breed them like cattle. He viewed Alexander's victory as a loss for all supernatural kind. Alabon, with its oppressive laws and hatred of sanguines, became his sanctuary. "I have here a statement given to me by a familiar that both we and the accused is well acquainted with. Prince Bastian's missing apprentice, Dominic Barone," Marcus said, as he held the signed confession up for the court to see. Lucia stood quietly and undisturbed as she waited for the wizard to begin his attack. "We managed to apprehend the missing familiar when we caught him sneaking back into the city walls," the wizard announced. Bastian's gaze shifted momentarily to Romula, whose eyes were filled with fear and despair. "As all of us in this room knows, any statements given before the court are done under the influence of serum. So what I'm about to read now is the whole truth, he declared before turning to give Lucia one last spiteful smile. As Marcus read the detailed information gained by Dominic, Bastian's face grew pale. Lucia had indeed incited a rebellion. She had encouraged familiars to leave their master's side and form an army of resistance. The most damning of all, however, was her aiding Brea in killing her master, Prince Jared, and then helping her flee. After he finished reading everything, Marcus handed the document over to Vesta. She quickly scanned it before passing it down. In light of this new evidence, I will proceed to sentencing with the throne's approval, she said. Chilton nodded in consent. Very well, before I do, have you anything to say, Blood Witch? Killing me may bring you peace. It may even bring some of you joy. What it will not do is stop the change that will most definitely come, Lucia decreed. The council merely scoffed at her prediction and carried on with their business. By the authority of this court, I sentence you to death, Blood Witch. Your manner of demise will be decreed by King Gaius. Take the prisoner back to her cell, Vesta ordered, before adjourning the court. When the crystals returned to black, Bastian closed his eyes in sorrow. He had wanted to bring about change to Alabin. He had wanted to bring an end to the very things Lucia had mentioned. The difference is, he wanted to do it peacefully, through law and order, with her at his side. In those quiet evenings they shared, he had managed to forget about such things as rebellion and war. Her eyes were the picture of serenity, her face the image of tranquility, and through them he had lost all his former prejudice of her kind. His father's voice pulled him from the wreckage of his dreams to the grim reality that was his life. I'm sorry, Bastian. I'm sorry you had to learn the truth this way. But now you know, and now you can do what must be done. What must be done? He repeated in confusion. She must be put to death, so that you can prove your alliance with Alabin and free yourself of her spell, Gaius said. What are you suggesting, Father? Bastian asked as dread spilled over him like an approaching storm. I hold her death warrant in my hands. I am weak and old, so it will be acceptable for me to pass this decision on to you, the future king. Secure your throne, my son. Stop the wagging tongues of Chilton and his cronies. Decree her death and keep your crown. I would sooner cut out my own heart, the prince declared miserably. Bastian, damn you and damn your crown, he yelled. Very well, but if I decree her manner of death, I will make sure she suffers. Her pain will be legend. I will make certain she dies agonizingly slow. I will also order you to watch every moment of her torture. Is that what you want, Bastian? Do you want the memory of her screams to haunt you all the days of your life? The horror on his son's face said it all. Bastian snatched the document from his withered hands angrily before sitting down at a desk nearby. Before I decree anything, I want a full pardon given to my familiar, and then I want him released, he said, with his back to the king. It shall be done, his father promised, before nodding to Caspian to go carry it out. Though he could not see Romula's face, he could tell she was grateful and relieved. Bastian's hands shook as he tried to think of a painless manner of death. He remembered not too long ago they had captured a darkling that had breached their city walls. They were horrible creatures, born from shadow and made in the image of death. They preyed on the living, for they had no life of their own. They could suck the breath from a person in seconds. Their death was quick and painless. He closed his eyes when he realized this was the kindest thing he could do for her, the final kindness. His hands shook as he signed his name, then handed the document over. Gaius quickly viewed it before giving it to the page to take to the council. Father and son stared at one another in bitter silence before the king spoke. "You may never forgive me for this moment, Bastian, but one day you will understand it. If you die before her execution tomorrow, I'll stop it," his son promised. "The Sanguine will meet her end, and you will wear the crown," his father decreed.